This is The Fifth Estate, a conversation between young African scholars from the Fort Hall School of Government and Professor Mutahi Ngunyi. This Sunday, we will play the devil's advocate on Uhuru Kenyatta. And we will do so because we support his government. We want him to succeed. However, if he does not manage politics, politics will manage him. The country almost snapped when the Maraga Supreme Court did a civilian coup on the will of the people. This happened because Uhuru did not manage politics. Instead, politics managed him. And the same tragedy is about to repeat itself. We will plead temporary insanity and suggest that Uhuru is risking an impeachment. If something as bizarre as the Maraga ruling could happen, an attempt to impeach Uhuru would not be far-fetched. Besides, the coup makers in the last elections are still in town. In our view, Uhuru is beginning to look like the emperor who wore an invisible robe. Those who did not see how beautiful the robe was were said to be stupid and undiscerning. Consider this story with us.
This is a story by a Danish writer known as Hans Christian Andersen. In this story, two conmen arrived at the emperor's palace. Then they promised to make him a new robe that was invisible. Those who could not see how beautiful the robe was were enemies of the emperor. They were to be beheaded. After weeks of making this invisible robe, it was finally ready. The emperor was asked to undress and put on the new impressive robe. So a grand parade was organized so that the emperor could prance and do a catwalk for his loyal subjects. And because no one wanted to be beheaded or called an enemy of the emperor for not seeing the beauty of this invisible robe, everyone praised it. But one little boy remained true to self. He exclaimed, "But the emperor is naked!" And with this truth exposed, everyone in the parade exclaimed, "The emperor is naked!" The joke was on the emperor. Currently, the Uhuru government is naked. But those who do not want to be called enemies of Uhuru are telling him that the invisible robe is beautiful. But here's the truth. The government is naked.
Let us begin with corruption. If this is the dominant national conversation 6 months after swearing in, it will not die away. Like in the first term, if Uhuru does not manage it, it will manage him. And we say so because corruption is a sly institution. Corruption does not fight back. That is a lie. Corruption corrupts back. And this is because corruption is a generous institution. To survive, it shares its spoils with danger. Anyone posing a threat to the institution is invited to partake of its spoils. You fight it, it multiplies. You slay it, it breeds bigger and more vicious corruption. Like the Hydra, if you chop off one head, 3 heads grow. You chop off a head at NYS in 2016, you breed 3 more vicious corruption heads at DCI, DPP, and judiciary. Then in 2018, the NYS corruption shoots from 791 million to 9 billion. The Uhuru government is therefore naked because its strategy for fighting corruption is naive. Allow us to demonstrate this naivety.
What we are fighting in NYS is not corruption. To call it corruption is to make it look posh. The case of NYS is outright theft, and to call theft corruption is to sanitize evil. Bure kabisa. But there is one more thing. 6 months into Uhuru's second term, corruption is the main legacy item, and it will not go away. Corruption has taken over from the Big Four as the legacy project. In our view, this is a carefully engineered project to create anger and depict Uhuru as incompetent. And it is working. If you borrow from the Westgate national anger, this corruption circus will be crowned by a terror attack and other goofs. With some Kikuyu leaders behaving badly towards Ruto, and Uhuru remaining silent about it, This series of unfortunate events will give Uhuru little sympathy. Even Kikuyus who supported him will begin to see him as incompetent. Yet all this will have been engineered to create a justification for impeachment. We repeat our warning to Uhuru. There is a trap ahead. If you do not manage politics, politics will manage you. And the Maraga ruling is our painful reminder.
We are worried by two grievances. And if the two grievances converge, an impeachment could happen. The first grievance is about the Kalenjin nation. There is a claim that the government is targeting the Kalenjin nation in its anti-corruption crusade in the maize sector. True or not, we must remind Uhuru that politics is perception. If it looks like government is targeting the Kalenjin nation, it will be interpreted as targeting of the Kalenjin nation. And if some Gema leaders are saying that they owe William Ruto no debt, then fuel is added to the narrative that the Kalenjin nation is being targeted. But what is worse is that the president has not corrected this Gema mischief, and the result is suspicion. The second grievance is about the handshake. This handshake is just a ceasefire instrument. It is about the cessation of hostilities. But if NASA disengages from the handshake and joins hands with the suspicious Kalenjin nation, then the impeachment of Uhuru in parliament will happen at zero option. And the Gema turncoats are blind to this. If Uhuru does not manage politics, politics will manage him. And this is what the Maraga decision taught us.
You can kill the messenger, but you cannot kill the message. They killed Dedan Kimathi, but not his message of liberation. They killed Martin Luther King Jr., but not his message of unification. They killed Jesus Christ, but not his message of salvation. Uhuru can kill the messengers, but not the message. And the message is consistent. If he does not manage politics, politics will manage him. You see, the handshake is what Jesus referred to as a whitewashed grave in the Holy Bible. On top, it looks tidy, but underground, it is rotten and stinky. The handshake is a grave of live wires, a place where we buried all our election contractions alive. Then we assume that all is well because the handshake said so. If the handshake contained Raila, then it isolated Ruto. It solved one problem and created another. And the problem with this is simple. If Raila and Ruto's men come together in parliament, they will impeach Uhuru. And the person Uhuru should take care of, therefore, is not Raila, it is Ruto. Ruto is Uhuru's political insurance, whether we like it or not.
In the days of Mzee Kenyatta, they ate the budget surplus, but not the budget. In the days of Mzee Moi, they ate both the budget surplus and the budget. And in the days of Mzee Kibaki, they ate the budget surplus, the budget, and the budget deficit. If our national debt is high, it is because the budget deficit was eaten. And with this kind of generational eating, you cannot blame Uhuru Kenyatta. He inherited a government structure with a big appetite for eating. However, we did not elect the NYS director. We did not elect the NCPB director or the Kenya Pipeline director. Zero. The person we elected is Uhuru Kenyatta. If public funds were stolen, the man accountable to the public is the president and not his appointees. But in Uhuru's defense, I submit that the president executes all his intentions through the civil service headed by Joseph Kenywa. And if the Uhuru government is currently naked, it is because the civil service has failed him. It is that simple. In my view, impeachment is a far-fetched conversation, but the president should not push the opponents to this point of desperation because of incompetent civil service. He needs to change the civil service for corruption to become history in this country, in my view. But I could also be right.
And now our final thought. It is a story from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15 in the Holy Bible. In this story, Samuel instructed King Saul to go to battle with the Amalekites. He told him to show them no mercy, because they shall show him none. Samuel instructed Saul to destroy everything with no exception. But when victory was granted to King Saul, he decided to spare the king of the Amalekites, a few beautiful women and some well-fed animals. Although this act seemed innocent and generous, it annoyed God beyond. The Almighty had placed the enemy in the hands of Saul, but Saul decided to spare the enemy, his women and animals. Because of this failure of discretion, God punished Saul severely. In fact, God dethroned Saul and appointed David to replace him. And this is the handshake scene of Uhuru Kenyatta. Raila was delivered into the hands of Uhuru on a plate. But because Uhuru is a good man, he decided not to finish Raila politically. And because of this act of generosity, the handshake will be engraved as a nightmare of Uhuru's legacy term.